What happened when a 67-year-old tourist suddenly collapsed during the changing of the guard ceremony at Buckingham Palace? Hundreds of people froze in shock. Her husband screamed for help, and for a few terrifying seconds, tragedy seemed inevitable. But then, a royal guard did the unthinkable. He broke centuries of ceremonial protocol and revealed hidden training that saved her life. The entire 8-minute rescue was caught on camera from every angle, and what this soldier did next shocked the world. Before we show you the footage that went viral, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. The morning of June 23, 2024, began like any other summer day at Buckingham Palace, with golden sunlight illuminating the ornate gates and hundreds of tourists gathering for the iconic changing of the guard ceremony. Margaret and Robert Hayes, a retired couple from Manchester celebrating their 45th wedding anniversary, stood in the front row behind the barriers, finally witnessing the ceremony Margaret had dreamed about since childhood. Guardsman David Patterson stood at his ceremonial position near the central gates, his scarlet tunic immaculate black bearskin hat adding height to his already impressive 6'1" frame. At 31, Patterson had served 9 years in the Grenadier Guards, including 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. But what the tourists photographing his perfect military bearing didn't know was that Patterson held advanced paramedic certification earned during his military service as a combat medic. His training had been comprehensive: battlefield medicine where seconds determined life or death, civilian paramedic certification requiring hundreds of hospital hours, and regular recertification drills that kept his skills sharp. Margaret had woken that morning feeling slightly dizzy, but dismissed it as excitement, refusing to let anything spoil their anniversary celebration. She'd ignored Robert's concerns, insisting nothing would prevent her from seeing the ceremony she'd waited decades to witness. The crowd swelled to over 500 tourists as the ceremony began at 11 a.m. sharp. Japanese families with cameras, American tour groups, elderly European couples, and young backpackers filming for social media. Patterson maintained his ceremonial bearing while his trained observation skills continuously scanned the crowd for security concerns. Combat experience had taught him to notice subtle anomalies in body language and behavior. His peripheral vision caught Margaret gripping Robert's arm tightly, her pale complexion and unsteady posture triggering his medical training's warning signals. He watched her struggling to stay upright, fighting against acknowledging the sensation, unwilling to miss a moment. At 11:14 a.m., Margaret's legs buckled and she collapsed forward into the metal barriers, with a sound that cut through ceremonial music and crowd noise. Her body went limp, striking metal with impact that drew gasps from surrounding tourists. Robert's scream, "Margaret! Someone help!" carried across the forecourt with primal terror. The crowd reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Hundreds turned from ceremony to crisis, creating a surge that threatened to trample Margaret. Phones that had been filming pageantry now captured medical emergency from every angle. Patterson's response was instantaneous, drawing on combat training where hesitation meant death. He broke ceremonial protocol without thought, sprinting toward the collapsed tourist with focused urgency, his authoritative voice cutting through chaos. "Move back! Give her space! I'm a trained paramedic." The sight of a royal guard-breaking character shocked tourists almost as much as the emergency itself. These legendary soldiers were supposed to be immovable symbols, yet here was one sprinting toward civilian crisis with obvious medical purpose. Cameras captured his approach from multiple angles, documenting the moment when ceremonial duty yielded to protective mission. Patterson reached Margaret within seconds, dropping to his knees beside her unconscious form with practiced efficiency. His white-gloved hands immediately checked for pulse and breathing, while his trained eyes assessed her condition with systematic thoroughness. Robert hovered nearby in panicked desperation, watching his wife of 45 years lying motionless. "Sir, I need you to step back and let me work," Patterson instructed firmly but kindly. "I'm a trained paramedic." "I'm going to help your wife, but I need space." His voice carried calm authority from someone who had performed triage under mortar fire. Margaret's pulse was weak and thready, her breathing shallow and irregular, signs Patterson immediately recognized as potential cardiac event requiring immediate intervention. His hands moved with practiced precision, positioning her in recovery position while his other hand keyed his radio. Palace security. Medical emergency, adult female unconscious, weak pulse, compromised breathing. Request immediate ambulance. Code red, the radio crackled as Palace security activated emergency protocols. Patterson's training kicked in, checking responsiveness, maintaining airway, monitoring pulse and breathing, preparing for possible CPR. Tourists continued filming from every angle, creating comprehensive documentary of textbook field treatment that would later be analyzed by medical professionals worldwide. The sirens grew louder as London ambulance service rushed through traffic, but Patterson knew the critical minutes before their arrival could determine survival. His combat medical training had taught him that first responder actions during the golden hour often mattered more than everything that followed. Margaret's condition remained precarious, shallow breathing, weak pulse, grayish skin indicating shock. He maintained recovery position while continuously monitoring vital signs. Robert knelt nearby in anguished helplessness. Is she going to be all right? We've been married 45 years. 3 children, 5 grandchildren. This was supposed to be a perfect anniversary. His voice broke with each word. Patterson maintained assessment while offering honest reassurance. Sir, she's stable right now. Pulse present, breathing on her own. Good signs. The ambulance will be here very soon. Can you tell me if she has any medical conditions? Any medications? The question was crucial. Patient history often determined proper treatment. Robert struggled to focus through panic. High blood pressure. Takes Ramipril. She mentioned feeling dizzy this morning but didn't want to miss the ceremony. Oh God, why didn't I insist we go back? The guilt was palpable. Patterson processed the information. High blood pressure medication, reported dizziness. Sudden collapse suggested possible cardiovascular event requiring immediate hospital evaluation. The crowd had been pushed back by other guards, creating clear space. But hundreds of phones continued recording, capturing Patterson's extraordinary professionalism from every angle. At 11:18 a.m., just 4 minutes after collapse, the ambulance arrived. 2 paramedics, Sarah Chen and James Wilson, rushed toward the scene. Patterson had critical information ready. Adult female, approximately 67, collapsed suddenly. Unconscious on arrival. Maintained weak but regular pulse throughout. Breathing shallow, approximately 14 breaths per minute. History includes hypertension treated with Ramipril. Reported dizziness earlier. No seizure activity, no head trauma despite falling. Recovery position for 4 minutes with continuous monitoring. Sarah Chen nodded with obvious approval. Excellent work. You've done everything right. Your early intervention likely prevented serious complications. Her words acknowledged what both medical professionals recognized. Patterson's immediate response had stabilized. Margaret, during critical minutes when delayed care could have led to brain damage or death. The paramedics worked with practiced efficiency, attaching monitors displaying Margaret's vitals while Wilson prepared oxygen and Chen established IV access. Their coordination with Patterson showed seamless handoff between field responder and advanced life support, a transition that worked because Patterson's treatment had been textbook perfect. Robert asked desperately, "Can I go with her? To the hospital?" Wilson replied while preparing the stretcher, "Of course. We're taking her to St. Thomas's Hospital, excellent cardiac unit. You can ride with her." As paramedics prepared to move Margaret onto the stretcher, she suddenly groaned and her eyes fluttered open, confused but conscious. "Robert, what happened?" she whispered weakly. The relief flooding Robert's expression was powerful enough to draw tears from watching tourists. "You collapsed, love, but this soldier helped you, and now you're going to hospital. You're going to be fine." Margaret's confused gaze shifted to Patterson, recognizing through disorientation that something extraordinary had occurred. "The guard? The Royal Guard helped me?" Her surprise reflected the common misconception that ceremonial soldiers were purely ornamental. Patterson knelt beside the stretcher, his stoic expression replaced by genuine warmth. "Ma'am, I'm a trained paramedic as well as a guard. I'm glad I was here when you needed help. The ambulance team will take excellent care of you now. Follow their instructions and I'm confident you'll recover fully." The exchange was captured by dozens of cameras, documenting the human connection between the soldier who broke protocol to save a life and the grateful woman whose anniversary nearly ended in tragedy. Margaret's weak thank you was barely audible, but the emotion carried clearly in footage that would soon spread worldwide. As paramedics lifted the stretcher toward the waiting ambulance, Patterson stood and returned to attention, his momentary break from ceremonial bearing ending as duty required. The crowd burst into spontaneous applause as the ambulance departed, their cheers acknowledging the heroism they'd witnessed. Patterson maintained his stoic expression, uncomfortable with attention but accepting it as consequence of public emergency response. Palace security approached to debrief Patterson and coordinate resuming normal operations. The crisis management had been flawless. Emergency protocols worked perfectly, crowd control maintained, and a civilian life saved through quick action of a soldier who understood protective duty transcended ceremonial performance. Within minutes of the ambulance leaving Buckingham Palace, the footage captured by hundreds of tourist phones began its journey across social media platforms. The dramatic rescue had been documented from every conceivable angle. Close-ups of Patterson's medical procedures, wide shots showing the crowd's reaction, emotional moments between Margaret and Robert, and the spontaneous applause as the ambulance departed with lights flashing. The first posts came from witnesses who wanted friends to see the incredible rescue they'd witnessed. Just saw a Royal Guard break protocol to save a tourist's life at Buckingham Palace. This soldier is a hero! Read one tweet that included 30-second video of Patterson sprinting toward Margaret and immediately beginning medical assessment. Within an hour, the post had 50,000 retweets and climbing. A Japanese tourist's live stream had captured the entire 8-minute emergency from start to finish, providing complete documentation of Patterson's textbook medical response. The video showed his calm professionalism, proper procedures, and the way he balanced technical treatment with compassionate communication to Robert. Medical professionals who viewed the footage praised Patterson's response as perfect field medicine and exactly what we teach in paramedic training, British. News outlets picked up the story by early afternoon, with BBC News leading their evening broadcast, with Royal Guard revealed as life-saving hero. The coverage included interviews with witnesses who described Patterson's immediate response and professional competence. He didn't hesitate for even a second, one American tourist told reporters. The moment she collapsed, he was moving. You could see the military training kick in. He went from ceremonial soldier to combat medic instantly. International media followed quickly. CNN, Al Jazeera, Deutsche Welle, and news organizations from dozens of countries featured the story as example of military professionalism and dedication to protecting civilians. The footage resonated because it challenged common assumptions about ceremonial military units, revealing the trained soldiers behind ornamental uniforms. Social media analytics showed the rescue video was being viewed at a rate of 1 million views per hour, with engagement particularly strong in military communities, medical professional groups, and among people who appreciated stories of ordinary heroism. The hashtag Buckingham Hero trended globally as people shared the footage with commentary, praising both Patterson's actions and the broader revelation about Royal Guard training. Margaret Hayes spent 2 days at St. Thomas's Hospital undergoing cardiac evaluation and treatment for the blood pressure crisis that had caused her collapse. Doctors confirmed that Patterson's immediate response and proper positioning had prevented complications that could have resulted from delayed treatment. The quick action of the first responder was crucial, her attending physician told reporters. Minutes matter in these situations, and this soldier's medical training quite possibly saved her life. Robert Hayes gave emotional interviews from the hospital, describing his terror when Margaret collapsed and his gratitude for Patterson's intervention. We came to London to celebrate our anniversary and we almost lost everything. That young soldier didn't just save my wife, he saved our family from tragedy. I'll never forget what he did or how professionally he handled everything. The Ministry of Defense initially maintained standard protocol about not commenting on individual service members, but public interest in Patterson's story became so overwhelming that they released a statement acknowledging his actions. Guardsman Patterson's response exemplifies the training and dedication of all personnel in the Household Division. While their ceremonial duties are what the public sees, These are combat-experienced soldiers with extensive additional training, including medical response capabilities. The statement revealed something many tourists hadn't known. Most Royal Guards were veterans of combat deployments with Afghanistan or Iraq experience, trained in first aid and emergency response as part of their military service. The ornamental uniforms and ceremonial precision masked real soldiers with real capabilities who took their protective mission seriously. 3 days after the incident, Margaret Hayes was released from hospital with medication adjustments and instructions for follow-up care. She and Robert returned to Buckingham Palace specifically to thank Patterson, coordinating with palace officials to arrange a brief meeting that would respect both military protocol and the couple's desire to express gratitude. The reunion was captured by official palace photographers and select media, showing Margaret, looking healthy and strong, approaching Patterson at his post with Robert beside her. Patterson briefly broke ceremonial bearing to accept their thanks, his professional composure cracking slightly when Margaret hugged him with tears streaming down her face. "You gave me my life back," she said simply. "How do I thank someone for that?" Patterson's response reflected both his military humility and genuine emotion. "Ma'am, I'm just glad I was in the right place with the right training when you needed help. That's what we're here for, protecting people. I'm honored I could help you." The exchange lasted less than 2 minutes before Patterson returned to ceremonial duties. But the photos and video of the reunion went as viral as the original rescue footage. The incident sparked broader conversations about the purpose and training of ceremonial military units worldwide. Military historians and analysts explained that most nations' elite ceremonial guards were selected from combat units specifically because their public presence represented their military's best soldiers. The pageantry tourists saw was real military precision, not theater. 6 months after the incident at Buckingham Palace, the impact of those 8 minutes continued rippling through multiple communities in ways that no one could have anticipated when Margaret Hayes collapsed during a routine ceremony. The viral footage had been viewed over 100 million times across various platforms, making it one of the most watched rescue videos in social media history and fundamentally changing public perception of ceremonial military units. Guardsman David Patterson had returned to his normal duties with characteristic humility, declining most interview requests and insisting he had simply done what any trained soldier would do in similar circumstances. But his actions had made him a symbol of something larger, the hidden capabilities and dedication of service, members whose ceremonial roles often overshadowed their real military training and protective mission. The British military reported a 40% increase in applications for the Household Division in the months following the incident, with recruitment officers noting that prospective soldiers specifically cited Patterson's actions as inspiration. "People are realizing these aren't just parade ground soldiers," one recruiter explained. "They're elite troops who happen to perform ceremonial duties as part of their service." The combination of traditional pageantry and modern military capability is extremely attractive to young people considering military careers. Medical training programs began using the footage as teaching material, with paramedic instructors praising Patterson's response as textbook field medicine under challenging conditions. "He did everything right," a London ambulance service training coordinator explained. "Scene assessment, patient positioning, vital sign monitoring, clear communication with incoming ambulance crew. It's exactly what we teach." Performed under pressure with hundreds of people watching and filming. First aid organizations reported increased enrollment in CPR and emergency response courses, with many participants citing the Buckingham Palace incident as motivation to learn life-saving skills. People saw that video and realized they wanted to be able to help if they witnessed a similar emergency, a British Red Cross spokesperson noted. One viral moment translated into thousands of people getting trained to save lives. Margaret and Robert Hayes had returned to Manchester with a story that would define their retirement years. They'd nearly lost everything during their anniversary celebration, but were saved by a soldier who exemplified the best of military service. Margaret made full recovery with proper medication management and regular cardiac monitoring, her doctors confirming that early intervention had prevented permanent damage. The couple became advocates for emergency medical training and supporters of military veterans' causes, using their unexpected platform to promote preparedness and appreciation for service members. "We learned that those ceremonial soldiers in their red uniforms are real heroes," Robert explained during interviews. "David Patterson didn't just save Margaret, he showed us what service really means." Patterson himself received official recognition for his actions, including commendation from his commanding officer and acknowledgement from the Ministry of Defense. But more meaningful to him was the stream of messages from fellow soldiers, combat veterans who appreciated that his actions had shown the public what they'd always known. Ceremonial duty didn't diminish military capability or dedication to protecting people. The incident also prompted review and reinforcement of emergency medical protocols at royal and ceremonial sites across Britain. While procedures had been adequate, Patterson's response demonstrated the value of having highly trained medical responders immediately available at locations with large public gatherings. Additional first aid equipment was positioned at strategic locations, and coordination protocols with emergency services were enhanced. Tourist behavior at Buckingham Palace and similar sites showed subtle but noticeable changes in the months following the incident. Visitors demonstrated increased respect for the ceremonial guards, recognizing them as professional soldiers rather than tourist attractions. The viral footage had humanized these iconic figures, while reinforcing rather than diminishing their military gravitas. Educational content about Royal Guard training and responsibilities became standard in tourism materials, with guides explaining that visitors were watching combat veterans performing ceremonial duties as part of their military service. The context helped tourists appreciate both the tradition and the substance behind the pageantry. Patterson's story became part of Royal Guard lore, shared during training as example of how ceremonial soldiers might need to balance protocol with protective mission. New guards learned that their primary duty was always protecting people, even if that meant breaking ceremonial tradition. The lesson reinforced that military service was fundamentally about people rather than pageantry. Margaret Hayes kept in regular contact with Patterson through carefully maintained channels that respected military protocol and his preference for privacy. Their correspondence reflected genuine friendship born from extraordinary circumstances. She wrote about her recovery and grandchildren. He shared carefully chosen stories about his continued service. On the one-year anniversary of the incident, Margaret and Robert returned to Buckingham Palace for private ceremony, where Margaret laid flowers at the memorial to unknown soldiers, honoring both the specific soldier who saved her life and all service members who dedicated themselves to protecting others. Patterson stood at his post during the ceremony, maintaining professional bearing while acknowledging with the slightest nod the couple whose lives he'd touched so profoundly. The 8 minutes captured on dozens of tourist cameras had revealed something important about military service that ceremonies and parades couldn't fully convey, that behind every uniform stood a trained professional whose dedication to protecting people transcended protocol, publicity, and personal recognition. Patterson's response had been instinctive, drawing on years of training and the fundamental understanding that military service meant being ready to help when others faced crisis. The footage remained online, continuing to accumulate views and shares as new audiences discovered the dramatic rescue. Comment sections filled with gratitude, admiration, and renewed respect for military service. Thousands of conversations sparked by 8 minutes when ceremonial duty gave way to life-saving mission, and one soldier reminded the world what service really meant. What do you think about the hidden training and capabilities of ceremonial military units? Have you ever witnessed someone step up during an emergency? Share your thoughts below, and if this story changed how you see Royal Guards and military ceremony, pass it along to someone who might appreciate understanding the real soldiers behind the pageantry.